Hello there, John Siddique here, and I wanted to, I've got two videos to make today, and I know this doesn't sound very sensible, but I'm actually going to make the second one first. I guess I think you might know what I mean by that. There's kind of two things that I kind of would really like to talk to you about, and one is very, very lovely, and the other is just very pressing because of what's going on, and so I'm going to make the more pressing one first. Otherwise, that's going to come through in the second video too, and or the first video. Forgive me. Anyway, yeah. So, God, how to begin? It's been on the surface, it seems like it's been a terrible week on planet Earth. Yesterday, a beautiful young Member of Parliament, Jo Cox, was murdered by an extremist terrorist. And usually when we say the words extremist terrorist, it conjures up a very certain picture in our heads. And that picture has been put there by the newspapers, by the media, because the world deals in doling out conditioning. And about a week ago, we had the massacres in Orlando. And again, while the initial responses are reactions and vigils and horror and how can this happen again and let's do this and let's do that, again, the way that whoever the killer is, be they a white extremist terrorist or somebody from another country where they look maybe more like me, or from within even. The thing that we call radicalisation, we wonder how has this person ended up like this? And there's so much that one could talk about in this video, that one set of terms are used for one kind of terrorist and another set of terms are used for another, excluding the word terrorist, of course. And it's because even though we know the media and the news are basically creating the problem so that then things take place and that they can then exploit that for their own wealth and power, and they get rich and fat and go off on their yachts and then tell us that people are taking our rights away from us. Trying to fight against that in a way that's reactive just gets us nowhere at all. And every single day, there are atrocities all over the world, and these are never reported, of a vast scale. And if we just reported those, well, there'd be nothing else. The fact is that they don't go reported. They don't get reported at all, and we know nothing about that. We tend to live in very small, isolating sort of environments, in which we trust untrustable sources for information. And it's these sources that are directly to blame for what's going on. And they'll, as soon as these things happen, oh, it's nothing to do with us, we just print the stuff, you know, or I'm just pointing out this thing, it's to win an election I'm saying these things. And to try and find a way through by continuing the cycle just continues the cycle. What we have to do, it's actually very, very quite simple. I did a Facebook post this morning, or an Instagram post rather. It's created a little image which I'll post at the end of the video. And I just basically said something like, you know, if your beliefs lead you to kill another person, then your beliefs are wrong. And I didn't write that to kind of make people sort of feel good about themselves or anything like that. It's just simply that. The real problem is beliefs. Anything that we believe in, anything at all. By belief we mean we don't know. That's what the word belief means to me. Belief isn't knowledge illuminated by consciousness. Belief is taking the conditioned ideas that have been fed into us and that we have fed into ourselves, and we can call that radicalisation, self-radicalisation. However we hoover up these ideas, they're fed into us in school, in history lessons that don't have history in them, that don't address the actual past, that don't talk about anything, by our parentage, by our society, our schooling, our national ideas of identity. All these things get fed into the basket of the mind. And we then start feeling strongly about our views, and then we encounter other people who have been fed different sets of ideas, and our sets of ideas create capitalism, and they create communism, and they create isms and monetary systems, and they create disparity. And basically the very first thing that happens is that we're removed from the source of love inside us by this conditioning, or our source of love or our expression of love becomes one of that's acted out through the mind, through wanting to achieve certain things, projecting our needs or what we believe are our needs. And the only thing we can do is to let go of it. See, the thing is, well, we're kind of caught up in the mesh of things. It all feels so important. It's grabbing our hand every day and it's pulling on us. Sorry, I had to let Abba in. She's just back from her run and I've kind of lost my train a little bit. So this mesh of influences, this basket of conditioning, as Eckhart Tolle would call it, we believe in, and they create strong feelings inside us, and because we're not moving in consciousness, and by consciousness I just mean the life that's inside you that comes before all the conditioning that has been added. It's not that we can't learn things and we can't go out and do our work and have language and names and things like that. It's just that we locate our identity in these things that we're living through, and because we feel strongly about them, we feel it must be true. And when we're not located in consciousness, in awareness, we look outside and we feel threatened. See? We feel threatened by people who think differently to us. We feel threatened by people who look different to us. We come up with ideas that maybe, you know, if we kill all these people off, or we kind of put a big wall up, or we sanction in a certain way, or if we kind of push our agendas and kind of make this wall of noise, then that somehow something will change. It won't. It won't change. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And even if we try to counter this in a way that comes from a reactive place, and some people won't like me saying this, but yes, you know, tweeting about things to share information is one thing. Tweeting about something thinking that it actually is causing a change to happen is not true. Meeting in vigils with candles, again, it shows solidarity, and that's necessary. But unless we learn for ourselves to come back to who we really are, to the consciousness and the love that is innate to us, then the cycle is always just going to continue. And outward gestures can be beautiful things. Standing with a flower, a candle, and saying our heartfelt love and sympathies. But we want something more than that now, and this is why it's actually all going on. I think if we don't live from consciousness, if we don't learn the life that's inside us and who we really are, which is before the contents of the mind, then nothing will change. Nothing will change. And the only way that the larger movement of consciousness that we call life can get us to see is through suffering. And so we learn by suffering. That's why there's always these prices to pay. The loss of Jo Cox, who now right-wing media are calling her a traitor and so on because of her support of Syrian refugees and things like that. I mean, just look at the addiction to the mind. Don't get reactive about them saying these things. Look at the addiction to the mind, you know? And I'm sure there are kind of similar sort of left-wing kind of responses to it as well. I'm no wing. I have no interest in that kind of party politics at all, and ideas of nation and identity and so on. It's all bullshit. Every word of it is bullshit. The only thing I'm concerned about is us spiritually, and I don't mean spiritually off sitting in a goddamn cave somewhere going Om. I don't mean that, although Om is the sound of all things. I don't mean some lily-livered, pathetic idea that you've been fed of spirituality. I don't mean that. I'm talking life itself. I'm talking the very urge of creation itself that is innate and natural to you, to me, to everybody, to the murderer and to the murdered, you know, to the left and the right. And so if you're watching this and you consider yourself maybe an activist or somebody who wants to do something, you know, I'm not against that in any way. I'm all for activism. But it must be illuminated by the knowledge and the light that is true from within. And that means taking your time sometimes about things. This mesh of media, news, Twitter, whatever, 24-hour news, wants reaction from you at all times. And maybe if you stop for a moment and put your hand on your heart and think about why it's doing that. Why is it doing that? And it's to pull you out from consciousness. It's to get you caught in the grip of fear. It's to trigger you what Eckhart Tolle calls your pain body. It's to trigger your Shenpa, if you come from that tradition. It gets you caught in that fire. And it feels strong and it feels real. Whichever way we're looking at this, It feels strong and it feels real. And therefore, off we go. And we feel we have to defend ourselves. And then we begin self-radicalizing. Or self-conditioning, or whatever you want to call it. But it's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. I walk around now and I see these Leave and Remain and Brexit posters up, and all I see is conditioning. And a lot of them just look like Nazi symbols to me. They look like a very kind of delicate way of being fascist. And yet, even opposing fascism with ideas of non-fascism is not going to help us. That's why we have this almost like pendulum of things swinging between peacetime and war and difficulty and ease and things. Things have never been easy at any time on this planet at all. There's never been a golden age. There has never been in England where everything was perfect, this thing that people seem to be harking back to, which doesn't exist. This country for hundreds and hundreds of years was a colonial country, and all of its wealth came from exploiting others. And that gave it a sense of ease back here. When those people would no longer be exploited anymore, they are now our enemies. It seems as simple as that. So we're living a grandiose, and I think in America, actually, I think if you look at America, you may find the same thing. In any country that's been colonial or operated in this way. I'm not against America, and I'm not against England. I'm all for love. But I want a conscious America. I want a conscious England. I want a conscious you. I want a conscious me. Yes, grandiosity. That's right. I'm going to talk about this in the next video as well, on a personal level, on a more personal level. We have a grandiose idea of nation. We are better than everybody else, and we have a kind of grandiose idea of ourselves if we're part of a society that looks like the predominant aspect of that society, because we have strength in numbers, because our ideas are the same, because we can sort of hide in all that. And as long as nobody shines the light on us, and if they do, you're just met with absolute rage, absolute rage and lies and murder. And we have to shine the light on ourselves. We have to recognize these things coming up in ourselves and step back from that grandiosity. Step back, not into this is actually the strongest possible thing that we could do to cause change, to cause real change that would move us forward as a species. And you don't need to sit to meditate. I teach a meditation class and all that sort of thing, and that may not appeal to you, but just simply, if you can take one conscious breath, if you can just be in present for one conscious breath, the way I find easiest is just to simply put my hand on my heart. Just put my hand on my heart when things are just I'm being too pulled by things. And it's not the mind, you see. When I say I'm not talking as an egoic mind. There's an I speaking to you now because this is the way that this world communicates through a body. This is the way that life communicates on this plane through our physical selves. But the I am that I'm actually speaking of is the I am that is inside us, that is the truth of who we are, that animates everything in us. And this human life is the only expression that that has. And in order to evolve with that, we have to come back to vulnerability. We have to come back to reason. And the reason isn't mental reason. The reason is the calmness and the coolness and the beauty and the natural expansive movement of truth, of the truth of life. And the easiest way to do that, especially when you're getting caught up, is if you want some practical things to do, here we go. Turn off the news. It's insane, I know, to say this, given what's going on, because we think, I've got to know what's going on. How else would I know about this? I have no news channel in my house. I have Twitter and things, and then if something has to be looked at, then I look at it. But there's no regular news stream coming into the house through TV and things like that. There's a TV behind me, but we use it for online yoga lessons and for YouTube. And just stop supporting the media. You know, if we want to do something practical, just stop supporting the media and take their money away. Let's just take their money away. That's all that they fucking care about. Let's take their money away. And any shop that kind of carries on doing these things, or anybody, you know, sort of promoting this, we don't feed them our energy. We don't feed them our energy. It doesn't mean that we don't put energy into making the world more safe and beautiful and being on the side of life. This is what I'm really talking about. We need to come onto the side of life. And we do that by being in consciousness. And we might think, well, then how do we fight back? How do we fight back? We fight back by being present. We fight back by being really, really here. And then we can make choices which are true. You know, there's a Pink Floyd song, the Fletcher Memorial Home for Incurable Tyrants and Kings. And I think we need a huge Fletcher Memorial Home, maybe the size of, you know, New Zealand or something, and or Australia. Let's give them lots of space. Give them Australia, and just kind of stick them there. That's what we used to do, you know. Just put them all in Australia and leave them to it. Take these people who want to create division, who want to be the creation of the problem, and then offer us the solution to the problem, which of course is buying their product or believing in their wars, and just stick them all in Australia, and then let's just forget Australia and the rest of us just get on with it, you know. Coming from true consciousness, learning who we really are, this is the only chance that we have. This is why it is as it is right now. And this is why it's always been like this. Much love to you. Peace to us all. Peace and truth and awareness, and moving from there, and then being active. I love you.